Hello and welcome to another edition of The Garden Show with myself, Paul Kerwin. I'm coming to you from our garden centre here in Westport in County Mayo, and today I want to talk to you about trees and how to plant them. You need to make sure what type of soil you have before you go planting any trees. Do a soil test on the areas where you want your trees to grow or where you'd like to see trees growing, and have an idea of what your NPK or your soil pH is like. A soil test is like a blood test for the soil, so it'll give you an idea before you make some drastic changes to your garden. If you have a large area in the part of your garden which is very, very wet, you can plant trees like willow and alder and birch, and eventually they'll start to dry up that area, and then you can introduce more plants around that area as the years progress. So I've brought along three of my favourite trees, especially for this time of the year. I have Prunus Royal Burgundy, which is a cherry tree. It's Prunus, meaning cherry, Royal Burgundy, so it'll flower beautiful pink flowers later on, but the leaves will have a nice burgundy or reddish brown colour, which is really unusual for a cherry tree. The next one is Prunus Kanzan, which is a very popular cherry tree. It's the one you always see in front gardens leaning into the wind, especially in the west of Ireland. It's the cherry tree that covers the place in beautiful pink flowers. Fantastic sight. This is really, really easy to grow and very, very popular. And finally, my favourite tree, which is the Sorbus areoluticens, which is whitebeam. Whitebeam looks almost like a birch, but I love the way the buds form on the leaves, and I love the general shape of the tree. And I particularly love when the leaves are fully established, how the tree looks from a distance, because it almost looks as if there are flags waving in the wind. Basically, when you go to a garden centre to pick your trees, they'll always come in these size pots, so like 10-litre pots. And these trees will always have bamboo canes attached to them. Make sure that the hole is at least 2 times bigger than the pot that the tree is in. So you're going to be digging the hole twice the size of the pot, and about 1.5 times as deep. And when you dig the hole, make sure to loosen up the soil in as big an area as possible around the tree, not just the hole, but around the tree, because you have to remember that the roots of the tree needs to establish. So the roots need to find a way to look for water and to anchor the tree, if you like. So the easier you make it for the tree, the better. Never ever put fertilizer into the hole when you're planting trees. Sometimes it's the biggest killer of trees, because people tend to put handfuls of fertilizer straight into the hole, bonk the tree straight on top of the fertilizer, and next thing the roots are burning. So you don't really need to do that. You can fertilize the tree afterwards. When you dig a hole, introduce as much compost as possible. You can use the John Innes compost. It's a multi-purpose compost with John Innes, and mix it in as much as possible and firm it around the tree. The next thing I would do is the bamboo cane that comes with the trees, and make sure and get rid of that. You don't need that bamboo cane. You're going to be staking the tree properly. Our prevailing wind comes from the west, and it's always a pretty strong wind in the wintertime. So you want to make sure that you stake the tree properly in order for the tree not to move or disturb the roots during the winter months. And that bamboo cane isn't going to do its job for that. When you're in the garden centre picking your tree, make sure and come home with a tree stake and a tree tie. The tree stakes can be something like this, which is a 4-foot tree stake. It's a round tree stake, not a square tree stake, because you don't want the tree to be rubbing off the sharp edges of a square tree stake. The tree tie is normally attached to the stake using a figure-of-8 method. So you slip the tree tie on like this, and then you can tie it around the tree like this. So the tree will go through here, the stake goes through there, and it means that you can adjust the stake and the tree tie as the tree gets bigger. The second thing I'd say about staking the tree is always put the stake in the direction of the prevailing wind. So for example, if the wind is coming from this direction, which is, we'll say, west, always put the stake in facing the wind, and that way the tree cannot move with the strongest winds, which are always more or less coming from the west. If you put the tree stake straight down and the wind blows, the stake and the tree can still move. It's not really doing much of a purpose. When it comes to feeding your trees, as I said earlier, don't put any fertilizer in the hole before you put the tree in. This is a fertilizer that I highly recommend in not just trees but all plants around the garden. It's the GrowWise Pro 5 all-purpose fertilizer, and it acts for 20 weeks after you put it down. So it's a slow release fertilizer. It'll work away for 20 weeks after you fertilized your plants, and it contains 10 trace elements and nutrients, but it also contains seaweed in the fertilizer, which is fantastic for plant growth. So that's it from the Garden Show for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have any questions about anything we've covered, you can contact us through our Facebook page. Next week, I'll be looking at climbing plants and the best way to grow them. So until then, see you again.